Hi, I'm Jeremy, the Zoo Nerd, coming to you live from my backyard in beautiful Los Angeles, California. How's everybody doing today? I hope you're happy. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're having some fun. Today in our critter chat, we're going to talk about an animal that is highly revered, highly respected. At times in human history, it was even worshipped. And it is very elusive, beautiful, and powerful. We're talking about jaguar. Jaguars are the largest of all cats in the Americas. So that's North and South America. They are typically related to, or people often think of them more as being in the jungle of South America, down in like Brazil, in the Amazon rainforest. And they live there, but they also live a lot closer to us here in the United States than you may think. And we'll talk a bit about that. Excuse me, sorry, I have allergies going on today, so hopefully they don't make me sneeze a lot. Jaguars are up to about 250 pounds for a big male cat. The males are bigger than the females, and the females can be quite a bit smaller. Some adult females only weigh like 75, 80 pounds, and the males can be as big as 250. So they can be almost more than twice the size of a female. A female can also be that big, but there are a good number of them that are smaller, for sure. They are between 4 and 6 feet in length. That's just their body, with another like 2.5 to 3 foot long tail. And that tail they kind of use as a balance as they walk. If you've ever seen a house cat walk on a fence, jaguar uses its tail in the same sort of way when it's up in trees. And they live throughout the Americas, from northern Argentina historically all the way up through middle of Arizona to the Grand Canyon, in fact, which is actually northern Arizona. They also lived a bit in California, New Mexico, and Texas. So they lived in some areas that are not jungles. The jungle is typically where we think of them as living. They also live in wetlands, or like coastal, swampy areas, and occasionally deserts, grasslands, and mountain ranges, as well as the jungles. They are the third largest of all cats. So lions and tigers are both way, way bigger than a jaguar. But a jaguar is bigger than like the next biggest, which would be a leopard, and then like snow leopards, and then mountain lions are all going to be smaller than jaguars. They are extremely muscular. If you look at a jaguar and then look at like a leopard, they're kind of almost same size. Leopards are just a bit smaller. But a jaguar has a lot more bulk to their body. They're usually a little shorter, but super muscular bodies throughout their like legs, their paws, definitely their head. Their heads are enormous. If you look at a jaguar and a leopard within close proximity of each other, the jaguar's head is significantly larger. If you look at their skull is also bigger. They have bigger teeth, and they have really big muscles right here on the sides of their cheeks that give them an incredible force or bite strength for those big jaws. Their canine teeth, their really big teeth in their mouth, their pointy teeth, are the size of the teeth that tigers and lions have, even though they're quite a bit smaller of a cat than those guys. They have very large paws, very muscular bodies. They can be on the ground or up in the trees, so they're very, very good climbers. And unlike most other cats, jaguars love water, and they are very good swimmers. They will often cross rivers, lakes. It's even been documented of them swimming across the Panama Canal, which is pretty impressive because that's a man-made body of water that's in their region where they live. but they will swim across that as well. Like I mentioned, they were heavily revered by ancient cultures. The Mayans, the Aztecs, the Incas all had representations of the jaguar in their art. And at some points, different cultures have worshipped the jaguar and thought it was a god, specifically because of its ability to stalk and hunt without being seen or heard. They are excellent at the ambush stalking type of hunting, and they are very, very, very quiet about their ability to move. The name jaguar is actually kind of an English version of a Spanish version of what the native peoples in South America called them. That word is kind of, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of it, but it's jaguara. And that word means animal that kills in a single bound. Their hunting strategy is a bit different than the other big cats we've talked about. We've done an episode of Critter Chat on cheetahs and on lions. They both kind of run their prey and then kind of jump up on it and tip it over, and usually go for the neck. Jaguars don't do that. They hide. Sometimes they hide up in a tree and jump down. Sometimes they hide in low bushes near a trail or a water source and jump out. Sometimes they'll just see something sitting around and they'll sneak up really close to it and then jump on it and pounce. But when they do, they use those really big teeth and big strong jaws to typically go for the back of the animal's head, sometimes piercing their skull, or biting and severing their spinal column. So their very strong jaws usually end their prey animal's life very quickly. They, of course, have these beautiful coats. They're kind of this yellowish gold color with big spots. Their spots are called rosettes. Their spots typically have a broken border to them. So it's kind of like an outer circle, but it doesn't quite connect all the way. And then there's a dot in the middle, a spot in the middle. So it's almost like black in the middle with a little bit of yellow with like a broken black ring around the spot in the middle. And that's a good way to tell them apart from the other spotted cats, because they all kind of have similar coat patterns. So a cheetah is just yellow with black dots. A leopard is yellow with a circle and a spot in the middle, but the circle's complete. A jaguar, the circle's not complete. Their spots are typically a little bigger on a jaguar than they are on leopards. So those are called rosettes. Beautiful, beautiful coats. There are sometimes jaguars that are black. Those black jaguars also still have spots, but the spots are black. It's really amazing to see if you ever are near one in a zoo that's a black cat. Get up close to it and you can usually be able to see as it moves through the light that it does have spot patterns, even though it's all black. It kind of just varies in the shade of black along the side of it. I was really amazed when I got to see that up close and personal. When I worked at the zoo in Phoenix, for a while we had a black jaguar who lived there, and you could see the spots on her coat even though it was all black. And other zoos that I've been to have also had black jaguars that I've seen that with. In the photo I posted earlier today, those are not the best photos. They were taken a long time ago. They're taken through some mesh or some fencing, so there's kind of some weird like outlines. So it's not the best photos for that. I apologize, I don't have good photos of jaguars. But in the one photo, you can see that the jaguar's eyes are really glowing. That is called eye shine. And inside their eyes, they have a special portion of the eye is called the tapetum lucidum, which that sounds kind of like a Harry Potter spell, but it's not. But what that is, it's almost like a mirror at the back of the eye that allows a reflecting of the light that's coming in to reflect back through the light. And that almost doubles the amount of light in the eye and helps them to be able to see really, really well at night. Now, that's a common feature among most predators, especially predators who are active at night. So most cats, most of the dog family have that. We do not have that as people. That's why it's a struggle for us to see at night, but those animals can actually see better during the night than during the day. During the daytime, they have a hard time distinguishing amongst all the shapes and colors, and during the night they can actually see better because they have this little mirror thing in their eye that lets more light to help them see. Oh, back to their powerful jaws and big sharp teeth. So with those, and they can often go through a skull of whatever they're hunting, they can also go after some animals that cats usually avoid as a prey species. Things like turtles, tortoises, and a crocodile species that lives in South America called the caiman. It's well documented that jaguars eat all of those items fairly regularly. And in fact, they have a very wide amount of prey species. It's been documented over 85 different animals that jaguars might eat. Those would include things like deer and peccaries. Peccaries kind of look like a pig, but they're not. We'll do a whole episode on peccaries at some point. But yeah, things like deer and peccaries are kind of their main prey for a lot of the jaguars. Tapirs that we talked about earlier this week. Tapirs would be a potential prey species. Monkeys, capybaras, which are really big rodents, the largest of all rodents. They also will have their own episode coming up. And something that I think is kind of weird that jaguars eat is fish. They're really good at being able to hunt fish, and if they can't find other sorts of prey, they often have a very specialized technique of catching a fish, and that's that they'll position themselves along the edge of a water like a lake or a river in a place that they're not able to be seen very well by the fish because of the way the light's hitting the water. And they'll use their tail to kind of just graze over the water or dip down into the water. And that movement will kind of mimic what a little bug maybe landing on the water would be. And so the fish get curious and come up near the surface, and then the jaguar jumps in and grabs the fish. So they can be very skilled hunters of fish, which is kind of interesting and fun. Typically in the wild, jaguars are solitary. That's true of most cats, except of course the lions and the cheetahs, which we've already done episodes on. Males and females will come together for breeding. They'll stay together for usually up to about a week. And then he's gone from the picture after that, and she's on her own to raise the cubs. To find each other, they use several different types of communication. One is claw marks, so they'll scratch up on trees, and then they'll usually scent mark around that as well. So they'll kind of scratch on the bottom of a tree and then either poop or pee nearby it to kind of help communicate, hey, I was here, I'm this kind of jaguar, who else is in the area, kind of thing. And then the males and females also have slightly different roars. The way it sounds is different. The males is more like a roar with a growl, and the females is a little more like a roar with a meow kind of sound to it. And together they can help know if as they hear one another, they'll be like, oh, that's a male over there. I'm a female looking for a male, so hey, that works out well. But that helps them to find each other when it is time for breeding. A mother with the cubs, her gestation or her pregnancy is usually between 3 to 3.5 months. That's pretty short. That's about 100 days. So kudos to her for having a shorter pregnancy. That's typical for a lot of the cats and dog families. Their gestation is pretty short. With that, the babies are born pretty small. So baby jaguars are usually between 1.5 to 2 pounds, and usually born, well, always born with fur on, but eyes closed. And their eyes typically don't open until like the first or second week of their life. And so for those first 2 weeks, they're very, very helpless. They can't really move much on their own. And so the mom has to be very careful about hiding them and keeping them safe. What else? She usually has between 1 and 4 cubs, although 2 is the average. And that's true both in zoos and out in the wild. 2 is typical for jaguars. When the babies are about a month old, their teeth start to come through. They'll still nurse from their mother for about 6 months. And they'll kind of start transitioning from eating milk to eating meat during that time. But they stay with their mom for almost 2 years, and at about 1.5 years, they start doing some of their own hunting, and she kind of helps them find ways to hunt the different species that they need to be able to survive. At about 6 or 8 weeks, they start following their mom around a little bit more. Prior to that, when she needs to go hunting, she'll like hide them, make sure they stay safe, and she'll kind of go hunting, usually somewhere quick to find something, so she's not gone from the babies for too long. Jaguars exist in 18 countries. Most of those are South America. If you think geography of South America, from Argentina up through the middle of the continent and out to the Atlantic edge of Brazil, and then up through Central America and into Mexico, with a little tiny bit still existing in the United States. They're pretty rare, but they are still seen in Arizona on occasion. With all those countries, you would think that they are probably doing very well. They are doing better than they were, but they still are listed as near threatened with extinction. And that is because during the 60s, they were hunted commercially for their furs, for their coats. That has been illegal since the late 70s, early 80s. But there is still some hunting that exists for that, and they are still sold on like a black market illegally, because a jaguar pelt is one of the most prized and most beautiful of all coats of all animals. So in their home range, they are extinct from the country of Uruguay and the country of El Salvador. They believe that there are no more in those 2 places. And then of course in the United States, they are not seen very often. So I mentioned earlier that they used to be found up to the Grand Canyon, historically throughout most of Arizona, parts of California, parts of New Mexico, and parts of Texas. As the United States West was settled, they kind of got rid of most of the predators as people came out and started building cities, and that was true with the jaguar as well. They have seen in recent time, they've seen 7 different male jaguars, all males, but they each have a unique spot pattern, so they can tell them apart. 7 males in the state of Arizona since 1996. So in the last 24 years, they've documented 7 males. One of those was in 96, and then there wasn't another one seen for like 10 or 12 years. So there was a big long period where there wasn't any. They thought that they were totally gone from the US. And then during my time of living in Arizona, another one was found. I believe that was in 2010 or 2011. And since then, they've seen quite a few, well, not quite a few, but they've seen the other 6 of that statistic. So they have seen them as recently as 2019. That was well documented with a photo camera, a motion censored camera that took photos, and they could identify specifically the spot pattern, and scientists and conservationists working to help preserve the jaguar give each of those a name that they kind of follow. Some really fascinating stories. Some of them have been in and out of Arizona for years. Sometimes they come and stay for a lengthy time. Sometimes they come to Arizona and then they disappear, and then they show back up years later. So it's kind of an interesting study that's going on with the US population of jaguars. So with them being listed as near threatened, there are several threats for jaguars still today. They are still hunted for their coats on occasion, so that is still a threat that occurs, particularly in areas where laws are not enforced very well, and people who are dealing in animal parts definitely will still be able to figure out how to get a jaguar pelt to people who are willing to pay money for it. Habitat loss and habitat fragmentation is their biggest threat, as many places in Central and South America have very large populations and continue to grow more and more. Cities are becoming bigger. Roads are being made out into the forest areas or out into the wilderness areas. Things like cutting down forest for lumber use is a huge problem. And building big things like dams and roads and other things can cause big problems for them as well. Specifically, habitat fragmentation is a big part of the problem in Central America. So those are the countries from Mexico down to the top of South America. Those countries are kind of little, and although many of them have very strong protections for wild places, sometimes the wild place in this country doesn't match up with the wild place in that country, and everything in between is cities or people or farmland. And if it's a small forest patch with only, say, like 5 or 6 jaguars up here that are all related, and maybe 10 down here, but they're mostly related, those two populations can't get back and forth to each other very easily, and it's eventually going to cause things like inbreeding. Disease can be a bigger problem, and then it's trouble for the population in general. Luckily, there are some organizations that are doing a lot of really good work to help jaguars out. Oh, the other big threat they face is human conflict with retaliation killings when an animal kills a cow or a goat or a sheep. That's a big problem with most big predators who are threatened. If people are raising farm animals in that same habitat, a predator may on occasion eat a cow or kill a cow or a pig or a goat or something, and then the rancher gets very upset with that. And sometimes they maybe lose one cow every like 3rd year, but they may kill like 5 or 6 big predators every year that happens, because they don't want to lose another one, and then they kind of shoot any predator that they may see. So that is a big problem as well. Some of the people who are doing good work with jaguars that are helping things out, there are special shout outs today. There are 2 of them. One is the Wildlife Conservation Society. They sometimes go by WCS. They are kind of the big organization that also runs the zoos in the city of New York, the zoos and the aquarium. Wildlife Conservation Society has done a lot of work specifically providing resources, cameras, and scientists to help document the jaguar population in the United States, as well as they work in 8 other countries where jaguars are threatened. So they're doing a lot of great work. There's also an organization that is a non-profit organization called Panthera. They work to help big cats around the world, and their project with jaguars is to build wildlife corridors to protect those fragmented habitats, to try to create a little stretch of forest that links those isolated populations back into place. That's a big part of the problem with jaguars in the United States. All of them that have been documented have been males. They don't think a female has lived in the US since the 1960s. Therefore, there's not probably a breeding population in the US, and they think that the males are wandering up from a population in an area of Mexico called Sonora, with the most of the jaguars in Sonora being about 400 miles away from Arizona border. So that's pretty long ways for them to wander. They think that those that don't stay in Arizona very long realize there's no mate potential for them and then wander back to Mexico. So during my time in Arizona was a time when they documented another jaguar in the wild there. And during that time, it was very exciting because I worked at the Phoenix Zoo in education. The Phoenix Zoo supported organizations that were putting these cameras out to help document some of the jaguars, and it was a very exciting time to be there. Also during my time in Phoenix, at the Phoenix Zoo, there was a jaguar that had been eating a rancher's farm animals in Mexico, and they set a trap for it and trapped a jaguar, and it lived in a trap, and he was charging people to come and see the jaguar, like his own little personal zoo, although it was one jaguar in a very bad cage, and it broke some of its teeth and needed really important surgery to fix those teeth. That jaguar came to the Phoenix Zoo and lived at the Phoenix Zoo for about 2 years. And our vet staff at the Phoenix Zoo were able to fix his teeth. He had to have a root canal, and he had to have another tooth pulled to help change the damage that had been caused by him living in a metal cage for a couple of years in Mexico. When he recovered from his surgery, he went back to Mexico because he belonged to them, and he lived in a zoo down there in Mexico afterwards. But his name was Lucero. It was really exciting to know that a jaguar that was in the US once lived wild in Mexico, and that we were able to help him out with this important dental surgery that he needed. Also during my time as a zookeeper, and as I was training to be a zookeeper at the Los Angeles Zoo, I was cross-training with several different keepers and working with the keepers who took care of our jaguars at the Los Angeles Zoo. And that was a very exciting time as well, because we were building a new exhibit for them as part of the Rainforest of the Americas exhibit complex that opened in 2014 at the LA Zoo. I've shown you some photos of other animals in that exhibit complex. The video I posted of the tapirs chasing each other is from there, and also the otters that were swimming at the LA Zoo, the giant otters, that was also in that same area. So they also have a pair of jaguars that live there, and it's a really great jaguar habitat. So I've worked a little bit with jaguars as a volunteer learning to be a zookeeper. I was never the specific jaguar keeper at the LA Zoo. But they are amazing cats. They're very impressive. Their muscular ability is terrifying and awe-inspiring at the same time. I hope you've enjoyed what I've shared with you today about jaguars, and I'll be posting some more information about them later today up on the Facebook page, so check that out as well. And until tomorrow, have fun, be safe, be happy, take care of yourself. Feel free to like, follow, subscribe, and share any of the content from Zoo Nerd across the platforms. And full episodes of Critter Chat are uploaded daily to Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.